What's up, everybody? I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2023 Kia Niro. So the Niro is all new here for 2023, and there's this hybrid version we're sitting in. There's also a plug-in hybrid and a fully electric version. But thankfully the interior is basically the same in all of them, so this review will apply to all versions of the Niro. And it's a really nice improvement overall. So they made it a little bit longer here, so you have over 2 inches of extra rear legroom now, and a modernized cabin and all kinds of nice improvements. And overall, it is pretty nice. There's a few caveats that we're going to get to in this review for sure, but first impression, very impressive. I really like the design here of the dash and all the different angles, and just it's kind of a cool, unique kind of design.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit futuristic. It looks really cool.
Yeah, so one of the things they improved a lot was the tech here. So you'll see an interesting screen set up with what looks like 2 fully digital displays here, but what it really is this one is like a partially digital thing, but it still looks pretty cool, and actually looks like it could be a fully digital thing just the way that they designed it. And then you have a big, 10-inch screen in the middle here. But first thing, sitting down in these seats here, you have some nice, soft, comfortable seats, and here in this EX touring trim that we're in, they are heated and cooled, and I just think that they really feel nice. They also have adjustable lumbar support here, and yeah, I just have enjoyed my week here driving around in these seats. They've been really comfortable.
Yeah, and for the passenger, you have all manual controls for your seats, so just keep that in mind. You still can go up and down and tilt back and forth, but it also has no lumbar support, so just keep that in mind.
But anyway, moving on to the steering wheel here in the Niro. It's a pretty cool design. They're doing these kind of a retro futuristic thing here with this 2-spoke design. But I think it actually looks really nice. It has a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches. You have paddle shifters here and a drive mode selector even built right onto the steering wheel, which is cool. Just a few buttons, but nice and easy, and very non-overwhelming compared to some other steering wheels these days with a million buttons. So I think they did a pretty good job on that. And then, like I mentioned, the gauges here, you have a 4.3-inch little screen in the middle there, which shows you all your usual stuff, your trip computer, basic, info. If you're familiar with any other Hyundai or Kia product from the past, I don't know, at least 5 or almost 10 years, you'll be very familiar with that whole setup. And then you have these other little, digital portions there, but again, it's not fully digital, but still a really cool look nonetheless, though, and I think it certainly fits with the vibe of the Niro here. And then coming over the middle here, you have this 10.25-inch touchscreen display, and it works really well. So the big complaint with all of these large Hyundai and Kia screens is that they do not have wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. But they do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You just have to plug your phone in every time, and there are aftermarket adapters to get the wireless thing if you really want that. So don't let that be a deal breaker, but it just doesn't come with it from the dealer. And so, it's just one thing you have to keep in mind. But otherwise, the screen works great. Tuning your radio stations is nice and easy thanks to volume and tune knobs you still have here. And everything else is nice and easy to use with the navigation. And of course, if you go for the electric versions of the Niro, the plug-in hybrid, it'll, give you charging stations on the nav and do all that kind of stuff. Everything is so customizable as far as every little setting too. It's really great that you have, just all kinds of ways you can really custom tailor the experience to exactly what you want.
And also with that volume and tune knob, it's really cool. You can switch that over to your climate controls just with a push of a button. So you have way less buttons, but you have all the functionality still.
I think it's a really creative, really ingenious way, honestly, of simplifying the clutter. I know it's not going to be for everyone, and some people would just rather have 2 rows of buttons and not have the finicky nature of that, but I think for most people, you don't play around with your climate control very often, so you can usually just leave it on the stereo setting, and it shouldn't be a huge deal. I just think that's something different. Now, we do a lot of interior reviews, drive a lot of different cars, and most of the time, companies just stick to the same old kind of stuff and don't think outside of the box very often in a lot of cases, but this is truly like thinking outside the box, which is something I really love about Hyundai and Kia in general. They seem to do this a lot more than some of the others, and just anyway, a really cool little idea there.
Yeah, it's really cool and innovative, and it's one thing that you would never think about, so it's cool. One thing I will mention though about this entire interior is that there is a ton of piano black plastic, and I just wish there were other materials that could have been used, because there are so many materials that can be used. Even if it's not a leather or anything super expensive, there are other options, and I think I would rather have those other options instead of this piano black plastic, which, like we say all the time, gets so many fingerprints, so many scratches, so so many things on it. It's just like not pretty looking, and it's pretty looking when it's clean, but the moment you start using this car, it's gonna be scratched and it's gonna look like crap.
Yeah, and I think, like I can see, like over in the passenger side dash here where you have that illuminated panel, which is really cool, by the way, but like you don't really touch that, so like I could see, okay, fine, you want to do it on there and have it kind of blend into the screens. That kind of makes sense, but like they have like half of the door here is like covered in it, and like you're gonna be touching this stuff all the time and rubbing up on it and scratching it.
You have your keys and scratching it,
Yeah, and then like by the shifter here, I mean, you're touching all these buttons all the time, and so like I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to put all that stuff there. So anyway, moving on, one other thing I do want to mention though is you have these Harman Kardon speakers here, which is really cool, and I actually like that design here with this like all this like little dots in the speaker grill area here. It's a cool touch, and the stereo sounds great as well, and so it's a really nice upgrade here on these higher trims as well. But anyway, moving on here to storage spaces in the Niro, it's pretty good, and goes with the whole very usable nature of this being basically a large hatchback. So you have these nice large pockets in the doors of the bottle holder. You have a wireless charging pad here in the middle, and you also have the very creative cup holder setup, which we've seen in other stuff like the Hyundai Palisade, and also the Kia Sportage introduced this as well, where you have these little things that slide out and give you a cup holder when you need it, and otherwise they get out of the way and then have a nice open area here if you just want to have a wide open space, and I love that, and a good amount of extra space even behind that and beyond those cup holders. You also have a center armrest here, which is nice and softly padded and has another little extra cubby there as well. Moving on to the back seat here in the Niro, that's where again you get the biggest gain over the previous generation Niro. Me being 5'9", sitting behind myself, I still have several inches of legroom to spare back there. Now it's not enormous, we have our baby seat here, and it certainly means you got to scooch up a good bit, so it's not a massive back seat. But I know whenever I was sitting there, I had, still about, 2 inches or so up front here to spare. So you're not feeling like you're crammed into the dashboard, at least I wasn't, but.
Yeah, and I feel I'm sitting here right now and I don't feel super cramped up here either. So, I mean, that's good. We're also of average heights, so anybody taller might be a little uncomfortable, so.
But yeah, I think this is certainly pretty good for this segment, and there are some hatchbacks that are definitely tighter, like a Toyota Corolla hatch, something like that, but even like a Honda Civic hatch has a pretty similar amount of space, so it isn't overachieving necessarily, but should certainly work for families as long as, the driver and passenger aren't too tall. But other nice things here, so you'll have dedicated air vents here, which is great. There's a fold-down center armrest, pockets in those doors, and also you'll see there's USB-C jacks here in the seat back instead of being in the center console, which is something that they actually took from the Kia Telluride and the Hyundai Palisade, and so great to see those here. Then moving on to the cargo space here in the Niro, it's also nice and spacious. You also will see, in addition to just the good amount of space you have on the top there, you do have a little bit of storage underneath the floor here in the regular hybrid version. If you go for the plug-in hybrid or the EV, that space will be taken up by batteries. But in the regular hybrid here, you get a little extra space there. And as far as the size goes, it's roughly about the same amount of cargo space as the previous generation Niro. So most of that length gain here just goes to that rear seat legroom more so than anything else. So if you're coming out of the old Niro, figure on having basically the same amount of cargo space, just a little more backseat space, and of course the more modern interior. But overall, still I think it's a really nice improvement for the Niro here. And if you are someone who does want even better tech, if you do go for the electric version of the Niro, you will have fully digital gauges here for the cluster. But here on the plug-in hybrid and the regular hybrid here, it's just going to be these simpler gauges. But yes, that's all of our thoughts here on the interior of the 2023 Niro. Let us know your thoughts on it in the comments below, and also be sure to watch the driving review as well to hear all of my thoughts on how it compares to its competition, the pricing, the fuel economy, all that type of stuff we'll cover in that video. So definitely click the link there to check out that one. But anyway, thank you all once again very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.